No need for a fancy intro here. Here are 19 reasons to watch The Shawshank Redemption. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram, and this is a place where I talk to you about all things Stephen King. And in this video, we're carrying on our walk through the movies and adaptations of Stephen King's work. And we're up to 1994 and The Shawshank Redemption. And I'm going to give you 19 reasons to watch this pretty well-known movie in just a few moments. But first, a couple of very quick plugs. So when it comes to plugs, everything you need to know is in the description. You'll find links to my newsletter, to my Stephen King quiz book, to my fiction, to the Constant Writers podcast, and to my Letterboxd profile. Check out any of those if you like, but otherwise just you being here is absolutely plenty. So let's get back to The Shawshank Redemption. So we've reached 1994 and the year where there were two iconic Stephen King adaptations released, and we're going to be covering one of those here today, Frank Darabont's adaptation of Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption, which was in different seasons in 1982, and of course became the 1994 movie The Shawshank Redemption. So I'm going to give you 19 reasons to watch it, and any reasons that might spoil a first time watch I will cluster towards the end and put behind a spoiler alert, so you can either watch up to that point and bail, or you can watch up to that point and then skip to the outro to see what I say at the end. So if you want to watch Shawshank for yourself, if you're a UK user, you can find it streaming on Prime. You guys in the US can find it streaming on Tubi, and of course it's available to buy and rent in a bunch of places, including right here on YouTube. Let's get busy living then. Here are my 19 reasons to watch The Shawshank Redemption.
And why do I thrill?
So my headline reason? It's The Shawshank Redemption. It's widely regarded as one of the best movies of all time. It's sat at the top of IMDb's top 250 movies of all time for a long time, since 2008 I think, and it generally does well in any polls where people are asked what is your favourite movie ever. And all of that love and adoration is fairly well justified. It's a beautiful, compelling and moving movie that is absolutely worth you watching. Spending time with this film, it's a great way to boost your mood, and I mean everything, the cast, the performances, the script, the production, the direction, the score, all of it is wonderful. It was kind of funny then that despite being nominated for 7 Academy Awards, Shawshank didn't win any of them, and that was the most nominations any King adaptation has ever received. But you have to go back to 1994 and see what it was up against. It was up against Forrest Gump and Pulp Fiction, and people just seem to prefer those two. And that's before you take into account that prison movies were not seen as particularly interesting at that point. Stephen King's name was not necessarily a pull, because people would have associated it with sort of campy horror from the 80s. And the title of the film is just weird and a bit confusing and doesn't really tell you anything at all, and isn't cool like Pulp Fiction. So there was a lot of things going against it. Where Shawshank really got its legacy was first on VHS, and then ultimately when it landed on cable and started playing all of the time. That's where the legend began to grow. So this was the second adaptation of a King piece from Frank Darabont, his first being in the 80s, where he did a Dollar Baby project to adapt The Woman in the Room. He bought the rights for this one for a few more dollars, 5,000 of them to be precise, and well, he got those rights in 1987 and didn't do anything with them for about 5 years before finally settling down and writing the script. And when he did sit down to write the script, he flew through it in about 8 weeks. And that script obviously eventually found a home at Castle Rock Entertainment, a perfectly fitting home for a King story. I think you'll agree.
Everybody in is innocent. Did you know that?
It's actually Rob Reiner, who is the co-founder of Castle Rock Entertainment and of course directed Stand By Me, Misery, all of those kind of things. He was so impressed with Darabont's script that he offered Darabont a serious amount of cash for Rob Reiner to do it himself. And while Darabont did consider it, he ultimately decided he wanted this project to be his, so he stayed in charge. And Rob Reiner ended up being a mentor throughout the production as well. Oh, and Stephen King, he never cashed that check for $5,000 either. He eventually framed it, sent it back to Frank Darabont with a note saying, "In case you ever need any bail money, love, Uncle Steve." So what's the hook of this if you don't know? Well, it's essentially a story of friendship and hope set inside a prison. We follow hotshot banker Andy Dufresne, who is sent to Shawshank prison for murdering his wife and her lover despite claiming innocence. And inside, Andy becomes really good friends with Red, who is the guy in the prison who can get things. And we follow their story over the course of 2 decades. We see Andy set up a library. We see him endear himself to inmates and staff alike. We see him ending up working for the corrupt prison warden to do a load of money laundering for the guy.
Put your trust in the Lord. Your ass belongs to me.
And all the while, Andy is harbouring a massive secret, which we eventually get to see in the film's climax. So let's talk cast then, and we've got to start with the iconic performance of Morgan Freeman, who was cast as the white Irish redhead Red. His work here, particularly the voiceover, is kind of career defining for him.
There must be a con like me in every prison in America. I'm the guy who can get it for you.
When you think of Morgan Freeman, you're probably thinking of something from this movie. And, fun fact, his son Alfonso makes a cameo of sorts because it's his photo that's used for Red's mugshots when he's up for parole each time. Tim Robbins plays Andy, and he's spot on for that casting. His performance is really understated, compelling, sad, and you root for him. You want him to succeed, and you desperately want his innocence to be proven. The great cast doesn't end there either. Clancy Brown as Captain Hadley is magnificent and terrifying. James Whitmore as Brooks is tragic and poignant, while Bob Gunton as the evil Warden Norton is the perfect antagonist for this film and this story.
Welcome to Shawshank.
So this cast could have looked wildly different. Tom Hanks was largely penciled in for the original role of Andy, but he chose Forrest Gump and went off and did that and kind of did okay for himself. And of course he did come back and work with Darabont on a King adaptation when he joined the cast of The Green Mile. Had Rob Reiner directed this, there's rumours that Tom Cruise would have played Andy. There's also stuff online about Harrison Ford being considered for Red, and also Brad Pitt was originally going to be Tommy, but then his success in Thelma and Louise sort of sent him in other directions. And yet when you watch this movie, the cast is perfect, and you try and imagine those big names in those roles, and it's difficult obviously because they were at different points in their career, but none of them work as well as what we get. So although this story is obviously set in Maine, the filming was done in Ohio, and the building that took the role of Shawshank is the Gothic Victorian Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio. That prison is almost as much of a character as any of the humans in this, and the setting is perfect. Now, it's not every video where I pick out the score or the composer in these, but have to give some high praise to the work of Thomas Newman on the scoring of this piece. It's a wonderful piece of work, and very, very justifiably earned him his first Oscar nomination. So lastly, before spoilers, this movie is an absolute masterpiece of cinema, and objectively, yes, it's very much one of the best movies of all time. It's not one of my personal favourites. It probably doesn't make my top 10, and you know, it would be nice to see some women in this film that don't get killed. That would be interesting, I guess. I'm not about to pivot here and just shit all over the Shawshank Redemption for the rest of this video. It is a wonderful film. You'll have a great time watching it, or rewatching it, or re-watching it, wherever you're at. It's arguably the ultimate movie in terms of escapism.
Jesus, when you say it like that.
Okay, from this point out, I'm going to be comparing the movie to the source material, picking out some favourite scenes, favourite lines, all of those things. Some stuff which might ruin a first-time watch, so consider this your spoiler alert, and you can either bail here, and I will see you again soon, or you can find the timestamp to just jump to the outro and come and see me at the end. But either way, if you're going, see you soon, but otherwise stick around because I've got a few more reasons for you to watch The Shawshank Redemption coming right up. So as with a lot of Darabont's adaptations, this is pretty faithful to the novella with just a few minor changes. The obvious one being that Red is played by a black actor. And funny, isn't it, how the kind of people who seem to complain online these days when black actors are cast in roles that they think should be white don't seem to have an issue with Morgan Freeman in this film. But anyway, that's a completely different point. Other minor changes from the novella. Well, in the novella, we go through a number of corrupt wardens, whereas we just get one here, and I think that works. That's a smart decision for the film. In the story, Brooks dies in a retirement home, and obviously what we get here is much more tragic. And in the story, Tommy, well, he gets transferred to a nicer prison. And so his testimony, his evidence that Andy is innocent never gets out there. Whereas again, I think a really clever move for this movie, having him murdered under the order of Warden Norton to keep Andy in place, yeah, really good decision. But there are a load of scenes here that are worth highlighting. I think Brooks' suicide, because he's so institutionalized that he just cannot cope on the outside world, is really heartbreaking and really, really powerful. Andy's encounters with the sisters are terrifying. But on the flip side, when he locks himself in the warden's office and blasts out some operatic bangers to his prison mates, that's a thoroughly satisfying scene. And of course, there's the bit where Andy channels his inner Soundgarden and unleashes that Jesus Christ pose at the end. All high points in a film full of high points. But my favourite scene, my favourite shot, it's an obvious one, but it has to be. It's the moment where we learn what Andy's secret was, where the poster is taken away, the camera pans back, and oh shit, he's dug a tunnel, he has escaped. How did he do that? As for my favourite line, I mean, yes, there's loads of iconic lines here, particularly among the things that Morgan Freeman says, but none of them tickle me as much as Hayward's attempt to pronounce the name of a very famous author.
By Alexandre Dumas.
Okay, so let's look at links to other King works, and I think you're going to have to settle in, and I'm actually going to just grab my laptop for this so I can read them off screen, because there's so many, I'm not going to remember them all. So let's see what we got. So Frank Darabont would obviously later make The Green Mile and The Mist. Castle Rock Entertainment also did Misery and Needful Things, and would later do The Green Mile, Hearts in Atlantis and Dreamcatcher. Tim Robbins would later be in season 2 of Castle Rock. Morgan Freeman was in Dreamcatcher. Bob Gunton was in Dolores Claiborne. Clancy Brown we'd already seen in Pet Sematary 2. William Sadler and Brian Libby were in The Green Mile and The Mist. Jeffrey DeMunn was in Storm of the Century, The Green Mile and The Mist. Thomas Newman also scored The Green Mile. And Shawshank Prison itself showed up in season 1 of Castle Rock. Aside from that, Andy in the film is in Shawshank for 19 years, and unless my ears deceive me, Red's cell number was 237. Is that enough for you?
Get busy living. You get busy dying.
And lastly, I'm sure I could easily do another 19 reasons to watch this movie, and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface here. So I'm going to sum up with something that I think sums it all up really well. So in 2015, the United States Library of Congress selected The Shawshank Redemption for preservation in the National Film Registry, and I quote, "It found this film culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant." Probably all three, if we're being realistic. I think whether you like it, whether you love it, or whether you shrug your shoulders at it, there's no deny that objectively this is a magnificent and a significant piece of work, and it's something that has become embedded in our modern pop culture. It is, fittingly, an institution, and absolutely is worth watching at least once in your life. But I hope you do watch it, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that Andy actually was innocent and wasn't just playing us the whole time.
I hope.
So there we go, my 19 reasons for you to watch The Shawshank Redemption. Let me know what you think of this film in the comments, and let me know the many, many, many things that I just didn't find time to touch on in these 19 reasons. Thanks as always for coming along and seeing what I have to offer. If you have a look in the description, you'll find links to my newsletter, to my quiz book, to my fiction, to the Stephen King podcast that I do, and to my Letterboxd profile. If you want to check out any of those, that'd be much appreciated. And do come back again soon, because next time we're still in 1994 and we've got another iconic adaptation to cover. It's the end of the frickin' world.